Hello and welcome back to the shed. Lovely to have you with us. It's been a very busy week. All sorts of things have been happening. We've learnt that Tesla are unable to get astronauts up to the space station because of rain. We've learnt that if you're an elderly camera person like myself with poor vision, you should get a small child, put them in a car and drive to a castle. But more importantly, we're going to learn about the Canon C300 Mark III. Canon's brand new offering in the kind of, I say, the 10K price bracket. It's quite an exciting camera. We've got it here all rigged up. I've got some bits, I haven't got some bits. I've only got the camera for a very, very short period of time, but I'll do my best to guide you through the menu, some of the features, and to discuss what perhaps is important about this camera and where it sits in the market today. So, what are the key features of this camera? If I start at the front, the first thing is interchangeable mounts. EF or PL, I believe there's a B4 option, but primarily I think for most of us it's going to be either EF for that autofocus, that DAF AF, or PL for cinema glass. So you have the choice and you can change it yourself with 4 screws. So you can pop it on and you can do it yourself. You don't need to send it away and you can chop backwards and forwards. Obviously it's not an instant swap, but it's something you could do, probably take you about 10 minutes to do it properly in a clean environment, not too hard. If I move back onto the body itself, it's exactly the same size as a C500. This is a good thing because all the accessories like the backs and the EVFs fit both cameras. So potentially, if you had one, you need to hire another one in, all your accessories will fit across. That is very nice. It's a brand new 4K sensor, Super 35. I think the big news probably is dual gain, like the ARRIs. The concept being is that you have 2 signal paths and you can get your mids and lows and also your highlight and kind of bring it together in a kind of HDR picture that gives you the best of both worlds. They're saying 16 stops. How you measure that, I have no idea. We're not going to be shooting with this today, but hopefully we're going to get it back, and we will. But the potential there is for a very nice image indeed. So that's dual gain in camera. Dual gain uses a lot of processing power. So I don't believe it works at 120 frames, but it will work at normal kind of frames that we normally use. Speaking of 120 frames, one of the most advantageous things about this camera is that I can be at 25 frames 4K as my base, and then I push a button, just one button down here, and I can bounce to 120 frames, and then I can push a button and I bounce back. That is something that's sorely missing on the FX9 currently, that ability just to hot swap, bush in and out between narrative and slow-mo, and it's 120 4K, which is, I think, the standard, or should be the standard, of where you want your slow-mo to be for a camera around that price point. So we've got all sorts of buttons down here, which I'll go through in a minute. It's all fairly self-explanatory. We've also got a monitor, and actually from a manufacturer, I have to say, one of the better grips. What's nice about this is you can run it in, put it in the bag, and you can pull it out and you can turn it, and it all seems to work fairly well. The one thing you will need to probably sort of budget for with this camera is some kind of loop, some kind of Zacuto loop or something, if you want to turn that into an EVF. I suppose the potential downside is that this runs off a proprietary video cable, and there's only one of them. I say downside because they also make a very, very nice and quite expensive EVF, but there's only one port. So if you wanted to run that and that, you couldn't. You have to pick whichever one you want to prefer. I would rather have seen 2 of those if you were going to go down that road. So this is the extension port 2, and it brings a few other bits and pieces as well. You've obviously got 2 more XLR channels and controls here. I would say that if you've got pokey out bits here, there's a danger you're going to clout your head depending on obviously where your balance point is. You've got 2 more over here, and all the other inputs that you need. You've also got audio here if you don't want to use that extension. What is nice though with this unit is you've obviously got the V-lock, you've got all sorts of power outputs, and you've got your little controls here that you can use on your menu. So it is probably an essential purchase along with the EVF if you're thinking about this camera, which does kind of push the price up a tiny bit, but that does make it more of a shoulder mounted camera. If you're going to put it on your shoulder, you of course are going to need a base, because everyone refuses to build shoulder mounted cameras anymore. So you are going to need something like a Vocas or a Shape or something, or a Zacuto, something, or a wooden camera, something that you can actually put on here and slide underneath and move everything backwards and forwards. Cards, very simply, are in here. We've got two CF Express cards. It can record to both at the same time. It can bounce from one to the other. And most importantly, which I love, you've got an SD proxy card. Always good to have if you're doing very high quality and you want to do a proxy for a quick edit, or just to cover yourself, to show a client. You've got that all in there. Tiny little thing like that, nice and easy. So now I'm going to cut to what I call the let's go through the menu and key section, just to give you a very quick idea of what I found as I kind of walk through this menu and how we're going. I've got an 18-80 t4.4 Super 35 zoom that Canon do on the front. I've actually owned this lens. A lot of people don't like this lens because it's not a traditional cinema lens in that sense, but it's actually a really good bit of glass for fast moving events. 4.4 admittedly is not quick, but the trade-off is that it's very small, and actually there's plenty of drop there. There's, that really, yes, it's not artsy, but it's quite a practical T-stop. It's also doesn't have hard stops, but of course you've got the AF and the DAF built in, and it's a very good AF lens. So let's have a look at this menu. Let's just see what we can see. I've moved the other camera so you can have a quick look. So first of all, it is a touchscreen. Now obviously the FX9 will be a touchscreen, but that's not till October. This is a touchscreen out of the box as it is. We have a little rotating dial here which moves most things. We also have our ND, which we can dial in like so, and as you can see, it just dials in and dials up depending on what we're up to, and it can show you stuff, and you can just dial it out again. There you go, just to show you very quickly. We've got fairly self-explanatory keys. We've got a record button down here. Okay, this is not a particularly big piece of real estate in terms of space for buttons, so it's actually quite nice they're all labeled. Obviously if you haven't got this as well, it's quite a small camera. It's only about 1.8 kilograms, so it's not a massive weight. But just quickly to take you through some of this stuff here, if I was to show you up here, that's a punch in, so we've got a nice punch in, so we can obviously move that punch in around. Going down again, we've got peaking, a little bit of pink peaking. We've got zebras, which you won't see because I'm not overexposed, and we've got this is waveform. Now the only thing that slightly irked me about the waveform, it's a personal thing, I would like a little more fine control of where that goes in the frame. I know it's here, you can have it left or right, but I want to tuck it right in the corner and make it quite translucent, but that's just me. Maybe fine for you. Got our LUT button, we've got our gain ISO button and our shutter, and this brings them up on here. So once they're up on here, you can just dial it up and down using the main rotary knob. So it's actually very simple in terms of how that works. And then this lot here, we've got obviously a light, so it allows you to light things up. And then we've got our bouncing for our slow-mo narrative real-time, which is, and you can see my exposure change as I move between 25 and 120. That is so nice, just to have that speed to be able to go backwards and forwards all day long. And you can obviously set all that kind of stuff. So that gives you those. And on the back here, I've also got another key, which I quite liked, which I shall show you, which is audio status. So I can bring up my audio, you can see that on that camera, and you can just have your levels, and you can just move through really easily on one button. Obviously you've got some controls and some functions on the screen that you can see. You've got function 1, which is currently a flitting between the settings, but you can change that. You've got your menu, which goes into your menu, and then you've got a little joystick here that allows you also to move things around. Just like the FX9, you can alter the AF speed, the sensitivity and the speed. So personally, they normally come out of the box quite quick, boom, boom, boom. I normally roll it down a bit, so it's just more of a gradual, slow move between, but you can tailor that to your own tastes, which is great. Shall we take it apart? to have a look at what we've got. Why not? Let's just take it apart to show you how small it gets. And I'll just show it to you in real time, and then I'll probably speed it up because otherwise I'll be boring you. So there we go. There we go in its small form factor, with the handle on the side with the start stop and a function button which you can alter on a rosette, and it's nice. It's tiny. It's this lens is probably a bit big in this particular sort of design, but you can see how it would work. I mean, in this way it needs, I think, the EVF here. You can't sadly use that with the EVF, it's one or the other, but I think you'd put the EVF there so you had that. Potentially you might want to change that and have a little V-lock plate, a little baby one with a tiny V-lock there, possibly feeding in there, so you could have both at the same time. But that would give you options. I think it needs a plate on here because it's so small. You haven't got a lot of space to mount stuff like, you know, transmitters, etc., stuff like that. But that gives you a really nice tiny footprint on how it would work. I think Bright Tangerine actually just announced a top plate and a side bit that's quite smart and quite small. It doesn't weigh a great deal, and that's even with a larger lens on it. It's very, very small. With a smaller piece of glass, that would be very portable, very easy to use, go in a bag, no issues whatsoever. In sunlight, bright sunlight, I do think you need an EVF solution, so I think you probably want the small one on there because that's not going to really work outdoors in the bright sun. And then if you did, you know, it would work. You could have it here. In fact, you could use that as a director's monitor or something else. You could just spin it another way and that would work, and then you could have it like that. You tuck your shoulders in. It's that old argument, isn't it, between how you want to shoot. Do you want it up here or do you want it there? If you're a certain age, you want it here. If you're a certain age, you want it here. It just depends on which side you fall. Neither is right. It's all valid. That's just a quick look at the C300 Mark III. Will it be as iconic as the C300 Mark I? Who can tell? But it is a very, very complete package. You can make it big with modules. You can stick it on your shoulder. You can strip it down, have it on your chest or a gimbal, keep it small. The choice is yours. It's not perfect, but it does pack a lot of features into such a tiny body. You know, internal RAW. We don't know the data rates, but it is there. You don't need to add anything. Good internal 10-bit codecs, all iron long op. So you've got those choices as well. That's all built in. Proxy recording, dual card recording, internal stabilization that also works with manual glass as long as you input the focal length. That is extremely useful. It's got great color, and also let us not forget, in these times of poor vision, it has groundbreaking and very usable AF.